The stadium was full. Yellow shirts covered every corner of Brazil. People were singing, crying, praying, and smiling before the match even started. This was not just football for them. This was life. This was pride. This was their country. Brazil believed the World Cup was finally coming home again. Nobody imagined they were about to witness the darkest disaster in football history. The players walked onto the pitch with pressure heavier than mountains. Millions of people were watching them from around the world. Children held Neymar posters. Old fans remembered Pelé. Families gathered in homes, restaurants, and streets. The entire nation stopped breathing for 90 minutes. But deep inside the Brazilian team, fear already existed. Neymar was injured, their captain Thiago Silva was suspended, their strongest weapons were gone. Still, fans believed Brazil could survive because Brazil was football itself. On the other side stood Germany, calm, cold, disciplined. They did not smile much, they did not speak much. They looked like soldiers preparing for war. And when the whistle blew, nobody knew football history was about to change forever. In the 11th minute, Thomas Müller scored the first goal. Silence hit the stadium for a few seconds, but Brazilian fans still believed their team could recover. One goal meant nothing for a nation like Brazil. But Germany kept moving forward without emotion. In the 23rd minute, Miroslav Klose scored again. 2-0. Fear slowly entered the stadium. Brazilian defenders looked nervous. Passes became weaker. The crowd became quieter. Then suddenly everything collapsed. Toni Kroos scored the third goal. Before Brazil could even understand what happened, Kroos scored again. 4-0. German players celebrated while Brazilian fans stared in shock. Some people thought the scoreboard was broken. Some fans could not even blink. Children started crying in the stands. Mothers covered their faces with their hands. Cameras captured old men shaking with tears. But the nightmare was still growing. In the 29th minute, Sami Khedira scored the fifth goal. 5-0 in less than 30 minutes. Nobody in football history expected something like this against Brazil. Not in a World Cup semifinal, not inside Brazil, not against a nation called the home of football. Brazilian players looked destroyed. David Luiz screamed at teammates with tears in his eyes. Goalkeeper Julio Cesar looked completely lost. The crowd stopped singing. The drum stopped. The dream died before halftime even arrived. Around the world, people opened social media in disbelief. Commentators forgot what to say. Football legends looked shocked in television studios. Even German fans looked uncomfortable celebrating another nation's destruction. At halftime, Brazil walked into the dressing room like broken men. Nobody spoke loudly. Nobody knew how to fix the disaster. Some players stared at the floor. Others looked close to crying. Outside, millions of Brazilians could not believe their eyes. Streets became silent across the country. Restaurants turned off televisions. Some fans removed their Brazil shirts in anger and sadness. But the second half was even more painful because Brazil had already lost hope. Germany continued attacking with machine-like precision. André Schürrle scored the sixth goal. Then he scored again. 7-0. 7 goals against Brazil. The greatest football nation in history was completely destroyed in front of the entire world. Cameras showed a Brazilian woman crying uncontrollably while hugging her son. Another fan held a sign saying sorry to Pelé. One old supporter wearing a yellow Brazil jersey sat motionless without expression, staring at the pitch as if his heart had stopped beating. This was no longer football. This was heartbreak. Every German attack felt cruel. Every pass felt like humiliation. Brazilian players ran without confidence, their legs moved, but their spirit was gone. Finally, near the end of the match, Oscar scored for Brazil. 7-1. But nobody celebrated. One goal meant nothing anymore. The stadium remained quiet because the damage was eternal. When the final whistle arrived, German players celebrated carefully, because even they understood they had witnessed something horrifying. Brazilian players collapsed onto the grass. Some cried openly. Others hid their faces inside their shirts. David Luiz apologized to the entire country during live television interviews. Fans across Brazil cried like they had lost a family member. That night became known as Mineirazo, the darkest night in Brazilian football history. Years later, people still remember exactly where they were when Brazil lost 7-1. It became more than a football match. It became a scar, a painful memory burned into football forever. For decades, Brazil represented beauty, magic, happiness, and pride in football. Legends like Pelé, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, Rivaldo, and Kaká made the world fall in love with the game. But on that night in 2014, the entire world watched giants collapse in the most painful way possible. Children who watched that match lost innocence. Fans lost belief, and football learned a brutal lesson that night. Even the greatest kingdoms can fall. Even the strongest giants can break. And sometimes the whole world watches while it happens.